Hey! Today we are making salsa. If you have the capability, it's a good idea to have a printed copy of the recipe. If you can. If you can't, you can't. I've already washed my hands, and I've actually washed my vegetables. Now I put them in this device right here, and a lot of you want to call it a drainer or a strainer or stuff like that, but in fact, it's a colander. And my colander fits over the sink. So there's my ingredients. They're just sort of drying off since I washed them off. Now the tools we're going to use, cutting board if you got one. Now sometimes the cutting board gets warped. And if that's the case, you can put a towel or a paper towel underneath it, and that helps keep it steady. It also, if it tends to slide around, that keeps that from happening. So I have a knife here. This is a chef's knife, and this is a steel. Now we're not sharpening the knife. We're honing the edge a little bit here. What that means is, as you use a knife, the edge is so sharp, you cut and cut and cut. The very edge, I don't know if you can see that, sort of curls over. When you take it to the steel or hone it, you're just straightening out that edge a little bit so that it cuts better. Now the difference between that and sharpening is when you sharpen, you're actually grinding steel off the edge of the knife. But when you hone, all you're doing is straightening out the edge. Now I wanted to show you my grocery list here. Here's what I spent on ingredients. I don't know if you can see that, but I spent $1.13 on Roma tomatoes, and an extra large tomato was actually $2.81. I have a habanero, I spent 6 cents on. A serrano was 7 cents, and a jalapeno was 9 cents. 50 cents for the lime, $1 for my green onion. Cilantro was $1. My chips were about just under $4. So, not an expensive assignment. Okay, so we're going to start with a large tomato. Now, I showed you on my grocery list, on my receipt, the large tomato was $2.81, $3. You can save some money by using Roma tomatoes. These are $1.69 a pound compared to $3 a pound, so almost half as much. Now, I'm not a tomato eater. I really don't know much about how they taste, but it sure seems like these are a lot better price than the full-size tomatoes. So we're going to go ahead and use these Roma tomatoes instead of this is called a beefsteak tomato. All right, now I'm going to get another knife here. This is called a paring knife, and it is a small knife. Let me retrieve my steel. I'm going to hone my 25-degree angle is what you're supposed to run it across that steel as. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I have all my ingredients. I have my large tomato or 2 medium-sized tomatoes, 3 green onions, right here, cilantro to taste. It's still drying out in my colander. 1/4 cup of tomato juice, salt and pepper to taste, 1/4 to a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, and half a lime. The first thing we're going to do is chop and mix well in a medium bowl our tomatoes. This part right here you want to remove. So just cut that out. Now today's tomato you can't really go wrong with. There's nothing you can do to hurt this. But I am going to tell you a little bit about cutting a tomato. When you cut a tomato for like a hamburger, you want to make slices like this if you're slicing for a hamburger, because those are attractive slices. You don't want to slice hamburger slices like this because they're just not attractive. But for today's purpose, it doesn't really matter. But what is important is first cut should be cutting your tomato in half so that you have a flat surface to face down. Remember what we learned in the previous video about how to cut safely. Now you can cut your tomatoes in big chunks or small chunks. It's up to you. I'm not going to be eating it, so I don't care. My wife and I both do not like tomatoes, and she won't eat anything spicy. So maybe we'll find someone to eat it. Now, we're not in a big hurry here when you have a sharp knife in your hand. And none of us are professional chefs, so take your time. And use the claw method, like you saw in the video. Again, because it's salsa, I know you guys like to laugh at me the way I pronounce it. That's okay. I can't hear you laughing. It doesn't matter how we chop it. Unlike a hamburger slice, a slice for a hamburger, excuse me, in which case it does matter. Now our next ingredient is 3 green onions. As you can see, I have my crock pot going with pot roast for dinner. Turn it down some. Okay, my 3 green onions. These have been washed already. Now, how do you prepare these? You want to cut off, I call them whiskers, but they're actually roots. And that's just the roots, just the whiskers. All this white part is food. I've seen people cut it off like this and throw all this away. Well, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to use it. The other end gets a little dry, so you can cut off the tips and throw those away. It's a good idea to have a place in your kitchen to put your trash. Like a bowl, put your waste in, so you don't have to run to the trash can every time you want to throw something away. So I have a little trash can here that I use on the counter. It works the same way, but a bowl would be better. So here is our green onions. Sometimes you get a little bit of dried up peeling that needs to come off here that you can remove. And I like to cut all 3 of my onions at the same time. Make sure you use the claw technique. I'm not one of those expert chefs with a knife. Those guys are professionals. They spent many hours cutting. I'm not a professional, just a teacher. Alrighty, those are green onions. Now we're going to use the good stuff, the chili pepper. I have purchased a selection of chili peppers. The habanero, the serrano, the jalapeno. All of these came from Stater Brothers. They're right off the shelf, so they're not difficult to purchase. I'm not going to use this bad boy. If I was, I would be wearing gloves. I'm not going to be using this one, but jalapenos have a good flavor. So whenever you cut anything that's round or rolly, cut it in half so you have a flat surface. Now, some people think the seeds are the hottest part, which is close. It's actually the whole seed tree. The pith that holds the seeds is as hot as anything else. This white part here is the hot part. So you can leave those in for a spicier salsa, or you can take them out. This little knife here is a paring knife and is designed to be used in your hands as opposed to on the cutting board to cut towards your thumb. So I've chosen my jalapeno. Now jalapenos can sometimes be pretty hot. I know last year when we did this we had some pretty spicy jalapenos, but you never can tell. All you can do is leave the seeds in, take them out, hope for the best. But I like the jalapeno. I think it has a good flavor. And again, you can chop those as fine or as large as you like. Cilantro to taste. I like cilantro. Generally, we like to use the leaves over the stems. So if you've got lots of stems, you want to remove those. You don't have to remove every last one, but you want it to be mostly leafy and not so stemmy. The stems taste okay, they just don't have the nicest texture. Now I'm keeping my hand off the cutting board because I don't need two hands here. I wish you could smell that. Cilantro smells good. I'm not going to use it all. Okay, so we've chopped and mixed well in a medium bowl. Well, we haven't mixed well. Now, I know some of you are thinking, oh, my mom's salsa recipe is better than this. And it may be. But this is the one we use in class because it teaches what I want to teach. So, yes, this is not the world's finest salsa recipe. But it is a good one, and it is the one we are using in class. So please adhere to the recipe I have given you. Now we're going to mix in a 1/4 cup of tomato juice. Pre-measured, I hope you don't mind. And salt and pepper to taste. Some garlic powder. Oops, wrong one. Now, some people were asking me about this recipe because it says 1/4 dash 1/2 teaspoon. What does that mean? It means 1/4 to 1/2. In other words, it's your choice. So I like garlic, so I'm going to use 1/2. So this has got a nice little flat surface there to scrape off the top, so we can get a good measurement. There's 1/4 of a teaspoon of that. I'm going to leave out salt and pepper because I'm not a fan of either one, and my chips are going to be plenty salty. And the last ingredient is 1/2 of a lime. Obviously, this is a recipe that you could change around as you like. If you're used to cooking and you know what you're up against. Baking is different. Baking, you must follow the directions because you're creating a chemical reaction and you can't adjust while it's baking, so you want to follow directions exactly. But in something like this, you do have some leeway. All right, here's my lime. They say if you roll it on the table like this, pushing down, it gets the juice out better. I don't know if that's true or not. Again, just like the tomato, when you slice this, you don't slice from top to bottom, you slice across the equator. If this were the planet Earth, you'd make an equator cut. And there's some lemon juice. Oops, excuse me, lime juice. Now, what do you do with the used lime skin? Well, if you have a garbage disposal, it's a great deodorizer for your garbage disposal. So I'll put that in there. Set that aside. And there is my salsa. Don't forget the chips. Salsa without chips is just plain silly. How am I going to do this? I don't like tomatoes. There we go.